And we're live.
Hello,
Hey,
sir.
how are
How are you?
you, Hussein? How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be on.
Attorney Hussein Saddrudin. So we have a very special show today with our managing attorney, Hussein Saddrudin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Good to have you. I'm glad we are going to be doing this. There's a lot of stuff happening. So
Yes.
we really need to talk about it and let the community know what's going on with all this immigration stuff.
Perfect, perfect. So we are going to do today a Facebook Live in English. We're going to try
Right.
to address all the questions. So if there is a question that is done in Spanish, I'm going to read it in English, but we're going to answer it in English also. So we're going to try to limit the Facebook Live today for English. Usually we do these ones once in a while. We're going to start doing them more frequent. There is a lot of questions, as you mentioned, Hussein. So what kind of topics can we expect today? Just briefly, what kind of topics do you think we were going to be covering?
Well, I think we're going to talk about the student visa. There was a debacle, a challenge with student visa that the government came up with, and there were some changes to it that happened. We also have a
Okay.
situation where we're going to talk a little bit about DACA. Supreme Court decision came out approximately 2.5 weeks ago. What are the next
Okay.
steps on the deferred action? What's going on? We are also going to talk about the embassy's opening, closing, which has a direct effect on cases that are like H-1B, L-1 type cases for the consulate purposes, how that's going to be impacting. So we're going to be talking about that. But let's start, if you don't mind, Haim, with the F1 M1 visas.
Hussein, give me 1 second. I
Sure.
want to start with something before. You have an illustrious career as we talk when we talk about legal, because also it's very important for people to understand, Hussein, that when we do this work in immigration, it's not like just because we want to do it or it fall in our leg, in our feet, and this is the only thing that we do.
Right.
This is a calling, and I
Yeah.
think that people need to know that from you, because for you this is a calling. Doing immigration, it's not only who you are as an immigrant, but it's the track that you have created for yourself. So give us a little bit about yourself. I think that people will benefit a lot to get to know the Hussein that we know.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, Haim, I've been practicing immigration law going now, God, 21 years. I'm old. Started off working for legal aid of what is now, I don't even know, it used to be Rio Grande Valley Legal Aid. And then I worked for an organization called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. This was an
Okay.
organization that was founded on the request of John F. Kennedy. The goal of that organization was basically to go out and litigate on behalf of immigrants.
Okay.
And after that, I worked for an organization called IRC, International Rescue Committee, where I assisted people with who are victims of uh, domestic violence, victims of torture, victims of human trafficking, and worked there for a while. And have been blessed to work with this organization now at the time of our own PC, going into 16 years now, and I have been
Wow.
board certified for in immigration nationality law 11 years now. I think going into 11 years as board certified immigration lawyer. So I've been doing this for a while.
All right. So now that we get that out of the way, and we're going to start with the nitty gritty.
Sure.
What's the first area that you want to discuss with regards to this news? Because there is a lot of news, as you mentioned.
Right. So I know we had you and Jaime have talked about a lot of the other issues in the past, but let's talk about one thing that we have not touched too much on. So on July 6th, immigration issued this memorandum just out of the blue. It provided the guidance. It said that if you are a F1 student visa or M1 vocational visa,
Mhm.
you are required to take online classes. Basically, what the law says is that in the past, it was okay for you to take online classes, but you have to now, starting in the fall, take in-person classes. So majority of the classes had to be in person. You could take one course, 3 credit hours
Okay.
for online, but the rest of it had to be in person.
And that's
So a
very
lot of
critical at the moment. That's very critical because of the
that
situation that
exactly.
we're living right now.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are a lot of schools that are now deciding, especially universities and some colleges and community colleges that are in the process of deciding,
Mhm.
well, whether we have schools in person or not because of COVID. And again,
Sure.
remember, immigration law is across the country. So things are kind of crazy here in Dallas and Texas. We know about it, but the same thing in other parts of the world. So what's happening is a lot of schools had said that, look, we may be able to do half online, half in person, or in some cases not open. And some of the states had come up with regulations stating that you cannot open in person for schooling.
Of course.
Well, immigration stated that if you did not attend predominantly in-person schools, you'd go out of status. So if I had a F1 or M1 and I decided that I'm going to protect myself and I'm going to, for my safety of myself or my family, I'm just going to stay home and take my courses online. Immigration said, if you do that, you're out of status. So either you switch to another school or take in-person classes. Now, what that created was a challenge for a lot of the individuals who are on F1 visas who had already paid or have been retained by a school, saying that here I am, I get accepted to whatever SMU or whatever the case may be. Now you're telling us I have to go get accepted to another school, transfer all my credits to another school, which will accept me to go in person.
And in a short period of time, we're talking about a month to less than a month and a half.
Right. And there's another part to it, that a lot of the schools still have not decided what their strategy is going to be. Are they going to do in person? Are they going to do online? They haven't decided. So in order for you to transfer your courses and do all of that stuff, you have to start basically yesterday.
And other schools, I think Princeton University has now a rule that if you congregate more than 10 people, you can be suspended from the school. They have these guidelines, so they want to prohibit people from congregating and, propagating the virus. So it's creating a big issue for students that are not here with a lot of family.
Right.
If they get sick, many of them don't have the way of being taken care of by somebody else.
Agreed. And not only that, Haim, I think your other situation is there are a lot of online universities like Strayer, like Phoenix, which are solely, they don't have a brick and mortar business necessarily, and all their classes are online. So what ends up with those schools is, if you have been accepted to those schools, immigration has given you a visa to go to that school. Now all of a sudden, you have to literally take yourself out of that school, apply to a new school, get accepted to a new school, which may not accept you, by the way, if you're applying to another university, because it may already be too late. So that kind of create a fear across the board. I was getting calls left and right. Haim, I'm pretty sure you're getting the same thing. That a lot of people are coming to us and saying, hey, what do we do now? So luckily, there were a couple of schools that filed a lawsuit. It started with Harvard and MIT, filed a lawsuit in Boston. State of California, the Attorney General there, Xavier Becerra, filed a lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit in federal court challenging this rule.
Okay.
The hearing was going to come in this week in Boston. And just
tell me what happened.
I'll tell you what happened. The minute all the participants to the lawsuit get to the court, the judge basically reads out instructions stating that immigration basically has backed down from that rule. Basically, they're saying, okay, we are not going to implement it. We go back to the way things were. So if you're a student, F1, M1, you're taking ESL, English as Secondary Language School, you're enrolled in online school, and you have an I-20, you have a F1 DS valid or time frame valid, you go back to the status that you were in. That means if you decide to take, and if your school offers, now that's the key, your school has to offer that option to you. But if you do that, what's going to happen is you are still going to be in lawful status. So my recommendation here would be check with your school to see what kind of status they have. Are they going to do online? Are they going to do a hybrid? Are they going to do in person? Let's see how that goes. And then if that's the case, keep in touch with your school's international department if they have a strong international department, and make sure that you are in lawful status. This is the way it is now, but all of us know things are changing pretty rapidly. So please keep in touch and make sure that you remain in lawful status.
Perfect. And what other kind of piece of advice we can give to these students, Hussein? Because we know that many of them, they come to the United States, they made a life here. Many of them have gotten married here, right. And they are on the status of this student status. They might have, they might be thinking about graduation, the possibility of OPT, but there might be other avenues for them. So I think it's the time for them to start looking at what other possibilities they have, and not wait until the last moment where many of the things can be taken away from them.
Absolutely. And some of our students already know things like CPT, which is you can work while you're in school. OPT, which is once you have completed your school, you have, in most instances, 1 year you can work for another for a company that is in your area, your field of study. In some cases, you can go beyond 1 year if you have STEM, if you're taking engineering, medical courses, things of that nature. So you can get a work permit to be able to work for that period of time. However, what I would recommend to folks is, although we have a little bit of a challenge with H-1B cases right now, this would be the appropriate time to start thinking about it. Because what happens is we get a lot of calls literally in April saying, okay, I'm ready to file. I'm ready to file my H-1B. And you're going kind of late now, because for the last few years, what has happened, Haim, you know this well, we filed for H-1B, and like within a week, all the visas are gone. All the 66,000 plus 20,000, whatever it is, are gone like that. So what I recommend to all my clients is start thinking, if you're an F1 and you're thinking about getting a job, let's say you want to do a CPT and you've been in school for a year, or you're about to graduate and you're thinking about OPT, maybe next year, then what needs to happen is you need to start preparing now. Start looking for an employer now. Start working with them now. A lot of those employers are going to say, look, I have my own lawyer. I just want somebody to do the work. Or in some instances, they're going to say, look, you got to find your own lawyer. Make sure you build your curriculums to make sure that the work that you will be doing meets your educational requirement, right? So it cannot be a situation where you have a degree in medicine and you're working as a clerk at a business, right? It has to match. So you have to make sure you're doing all of that together. Once you do all of that together, come see us. At this point, I think we have put that down on our screen, that we are providing free consultation. English, Spanish, Hindi, Urdu. I can speak Hindi and Urdu well, so we can do that. But we are providing free consultations, so we can talk about what your next steps are going to be, how we can assist you.
Well, Hussein, and you touch another topic, and this topic we didn't have it on the list, but I think it's very important that connects to these. We're talking about that transition from student CPT while you're a student, or OPT after you graduate, and hopefully you get an employer that gets you that H-1B. But at this moment, we're going through some financial situations in this country, and we are getting a lot of calls from people who are in H-1Bs, and their companies might be furloughing people, they might be laying off people. It's important to know that if you have that H-1B, you might be able to transition without being part of the quota to another H-1B. Right. Or you need to look at what possibilities are. And I strongly recommend to everybody who is in a work visa right now, even if their company is not one of those that you hear on the news, you never know. And it might as well be prepared right now for any possible thing that can happen to your company, your visa.
Yeah, and Haim, that's a really good point, because we have a lot of situations where individuals who are currently on H-1B will come to us and say, my employer laid me off. What do I do now? Well, if you think that there may be a struggle with your company, or they are going through dire straits, and you have somebody else who may be willing to take over your H-1B, the idea here would be you apply with the new company before you get laid off or before you quit. Because if you do it after, then games become much more difficult, and you may have to go through the process. If you do it beforehand, so let's say I file the paperwork for your H-1B today for the new company, and then you decide, okay, now I can quit, you're okay. The other company can absorb your old H-1B. But if you get laid off or you quit, and then you want to apply for H-1B, now you may be subject to the new cycle. So it's better to start thinking about those things now. The other thing, Haim, I would like to mention to a lot of our listeners here is we have clients who come and they have skills which some of the businesses want. And sometimes they're just desperate and they say, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and just get my H-1B. Just sponsor me for H-1B. But I have others who know that their services are needed, especially now in the medical field. So what they do is when they're interviewing with the company, they'll say, okay, not only will you do my H-1B, if I am good at what I'm doing and you like the work I'm doing, would you be content in sponsoring me for permanent residency or labor certification 6 months or a year down the road? So now you have had opened that dialogue, and you can talk to them about that as well, which is a good place to start right now, because there is, especially in the STEM field, a lot of necessity and a lot of demand.
Okay, perfect, perfect. That is a very good point, Hussein. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask you a few questions. People are asking us some questions. So these questions are in Spanish. I'm going to
Okay,
translate them and we're going to answer them in English, Hussein. So
sure.
the first question from Berenice Gonzalez. Hola, Berenice. She asked, how can I petition my husband? I'm a resident and he entered the country without status.
Well, first and foremost, generally, again, I'm going to answer generally. Even as a legal permanent resident, you can sponsor your spouse right now. Actually, this is a good time to sponsor your spouse, even as a resident, because the visas are working about the same speed as if you would be a US citizen. So it's a
Okay.
very fast process. So you can sponsor them right now. The issue that comes in, and we can talk a little bit down the road, is if your husband will have to stay in the United States, is he qualified to get his residency in the United States? Will he have to leave the country and do a pardon? Under President Obama and even under President Trump, you can do a pardon here in the United States. You may have to leave the country to get the green card and come back. So my submission here would be, if you're in this situation, let's have a dialogue. We can talk over the phone, but there is possibility that you can sponsor your husband, even as a resident, even if he entered the United States without papers.
Okay, perfect, perfect. That's a great question, great answer. We have another question, Hussein. Elizabeth Maltese asked us, it's the coronavirus going to affect all processes? I'm being petitioned by my USC husband, my United States citizen husband, and I'm waiting right now for my work permit.
So that's, unfortunately, COVID-19 has impacted everything in immigration. However, I want to make sure I explain one thing to you is things are beginning to open up. What I mean by that is paperwork has already gone in. If your paperwork is going on, immigration is working on those cases. They're working from home. Even if you apply for work permit and you're not able to do your biometrics, your fingerprints, the government is doing those fingerprints, rerunning those if they had done fingerprints before, things of that nature. So don't think that just because there's COVID-19 going on, so I can't file paperwork. No, paperwork is still going on. Is it going on at the same speed? Maybe not. And the reason for that is immigration is suspended doing interviews at immigration offices.
Yes.
In some instances, for example, people who apply for citizenship, they're delaying the citizenship. They're still giving people oath, but it's being in a social distance environment. So they're doing it in a different way. So answer to you, has everything shut down? The answer is no. Things have not been shut down. We are representing clients daily. We are filing their applications daily. We are doing all their work every day. So don't worry about that part. The only thing that you have to concern yourself is it may slow down a little bit, which is the nature of the game because a lot of the offices for immigration are closed.
Perfect. Now I'm going to bring this up, Hussein, because you and I have been discussing these. Immigration had a contract. Like everything, immigration doesn't do all the work.
Mm-hmm.
They contract work out. And one of the pieces of work they contract out, it's printing the cards, the physical cards, the green cards, when you file a 990 or the work authorization card, that is the one when you are getting an application. The question that we got asked, it's important to also understand, I'm highlighting here on the screen that the contract that immigration had with the company that prints these cards expired, and they haven't renewed the contract. Hussein, can you imagine the federal government, it's not renewing the contract with one of the companies that they're working with, so that company cannot print cards? And if we can see here on the screen for everybody watching, that's why I highlighted these. 75,000 work authorization cards and 50,000 green cards, Hussein, has not been printed out by immigration.
Right. And again, we are not only given an excuse of COVID-19, we are also given the excuse that government just doesn't have the money. And that's why they have furloughed 12 to 15,000 USCIS immigration folks because they simply don't have the money. Well, Haim, I have a way they can make money. Do you have a way where they can make money? They can make money by following the rule of the Supreme Court, right? On deferred action. Supreme Court, a couple of weeks ago, issued a decision saying, immigration, deferred action, DACA, you canceled it, you did it the wrong way, you did it illegally. Go back and fix it. Immigration hasn't fixed it yet, which means this, that the rule that we had in 2012 is still in place, which means even if you had not filed for DACA, if you were qualified back then, you can file for it now. That the rule in place is if you can do travel permit in the past, which they did not issue recently, you can apply for it now. But here's the problem. Immigration has not issued regulation. What does that mean? The law says, government, you have to do it. The government then has to say how we do it. How much am I going to charge you? Well, there's millions and millions of dollars to be had by charging people to get their work permit, to get their DACA, to get their travel permit. I can get all those 15,000 people their jobs back, Haim. I can do that right now with immigration. So for the folks to know, the deferred action, where are we right now? Deferred action, when Supreme Court says go fix it, immigration came out with all this bluster saying, oh, immigration, Supreme Court is wrong. The government branch that's supposed to decipher and know the law is wrong. But a politician would know better. That's a different issue altogether. But so this is what happened. Immigration says, we are going to think about this. We're going to think through this. What's going to happen? Well, a few weeks have passed. Nothing has happened. So yesterday, a group of 33 senators basically sent a letter to immigration saying, hey, we expect you to abide by the Supreme Court decision and start issuing work permit to new people, new DACAs, and start issuing travel permit to these folks. Nothing has come forth yet on this one. We are hoping something would happen pretty quickly. Although the president of the United States had said some things about it. Haim, you may want to kind of go into that a little bit. He has kind of rolled up the deferred action into a new thought process that he has.
Look, Hussein, you bring an incredible, now let me tell you something. That was a great transition on your part, because we were going to discuss DACA and covering all those points is great, because it is important to understand the situation that we are right now. The White House is playing a game with DACA. They got the Supreme Court, told them, you need to reinstate DACA because you cancel it illegally. They didn't say anything about whether DACA was legal or illegal. That's not the point here. The only decision that the Supreme Court made is that you make the wrong way in the way that you cancel DACA, so you have to reinstate it. That's the order from the Supreme Court. Right. It's been 3 weeks, Hussein, 3 weeks, and we haven't heard a word yet on it. And now we have these 33 congressmen and senators getting together and telling the government, you need to reinstate it. But now we get Trump with his big face, and he's saying, I am the one who's going to fix immigration. I'm going to give a path to citizenship, and I'm going to work. And the day before yesterday, he said that he was going to create a immigration reform based on skills. And that right there, it's also worrisome for many of us in the immigration law field, because we know that he used that skills language years ago to basically eliminate all immigration. And he said that you need to get points, and these points here and points there. And based on that points guide, he was going to basically cancel over 70-80% of the possible immigration into the United States. So he's using all this immigration, and as you mentioned, he's saying now, Hussein, and this is funny, you and I were having a conversation last Friday about it.
Yeah.
He said that he now has the power to do an immigration reform on his own, which he fought Obama for 8 years about DACA.
Right. This seems, you're right. It seems very ironic that in one hand, he's saying the government, the argument that Trump administration made through this whole process, state of Texas made through this whole process for DACA and prior to that DAPA, saying that the president himself cannot create this whole line of providing legal status to individuals without going through Congress. And that's what they argued to the Supreme Court. And now they're saying, no, we'll just do it ourselves. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is, yes, it's possible that he may come up with something. Doesn't mean it's going to work. Doesn't mean that it's going to be good overall. It may be possible that he may use a carrot and a stick approach, where he will say, I will give DACA a path to citizenship 10 years down the road. But if I do that, you cannot bring in your parents in legal status. You cannot bring in anybody who doesn't speak English. Somebody who doesn't make over $40,000 a year, something to the effect, which is what the thought process is with Stephen Miller, that's what we are going to come through with that. So if that happens, I highly doubt that you're going to have something. Again, I think, Haim, you pointed the right way, because by throwing this out there, the hope is that there are going to be some folks, some immigrants more specifically, whose families are U.S. citizens. When the when November 3rd timeframe comes in for election, people are going to start saying maybe Trump is going to do something, so they will vote for them. So you're right; it's more of a political thing. So I don't want people to kind of fall into this thing. Oh my God, something great's going to happen, and I'm going to get my green card in 6 months.
Hussein, and you and I have multiple conversations about many topics. You and I are geeks in politics and immigration and how all this stuff, because we enjoy this, and we can go back in history. Right. And we can see what you mentioned right there, that carrot and the stick process. The last big immigration reform, Reagan did that immigration reform based on, that was the carrot, and the stick was, let's pass the I-9 verification for employment. So the immigration reform didn't come just as, a beautiful thing only. No, it created these 30-some years of now having to prove, with all these documents, every time that you apply for an employment with the I-9,
right.
So we can see possibly something like that. I'm going to give you these, I'm going to sign it, but you have to give me these.
Right.
And unfortunately, we don't know politicians, in both parties. This is about both parties. We can go back also to Clinton. Clinton was the one who created all these bars that we have today.
Yes, so, the IRA.
Both parties had done bad and good in some occasions. So we have to be very careful with what we wish.
Right. And not only that, I think I think you said it properly. We have to be skeptical. We have to look at everything, but at the same time, we have to be realistic, which is when Clinton did his thing, and even when Reagan did and Bush followed up with it, it went through a congressional process. It went through Congress to make the decision. Keep one thing in mind. Congress is going to go out of session because they have to go out there and campaign. A lot of the senators and congressmen are currently running for election. We have an election coming up in about 3 months. So a lot of the people are going to be going out there and doing that. So getting Congress to sign up and vote for something this critical, have all the hearings, that simply is not going to happen. And that's why I think Trump said what he said, which is, I will do it as an executive action. That is on the authority of the president, which is going to be very, very difficult, not only for one party, Democrats, a lot of people think, but also for Republicans to give that much authority to the president. So we'll see how it goes. But I wanted to make sure that we understand that, DACA right now, one question that, Haim, you and I get quite a bit of is that people coming up to us and saying, hey, I did not file the DACA the first time around. Can I file it right now? And we tell them that, look, start gathering your documents, put stuff together. Let's have a dialogue to see if you have everything. But let's not file it at this point because government has not given us any opportunity. We have a couple of our colleagues, Haim, that who did do that as a trial, as test, that they filed the first time DACA, initial DACA, what we call. And their packets were rejected by immigration, stating that they're not ready to accept those. So if you hear from somebody saying, hey, look, just go ahead and file it, be very cautious. We have seen people trying to file it and without success. But the difficult part of it is when you file paperwork with immigration, well, you are naked. You're letting them know your status. You're telling them that you don't have status. And we got to be really careful, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation like this.
Perfect. Now, Hussein, let's talk about the last topic that we have for the day today, and it's consulates. We get a lot of questions right now. Consulates were closed for 2 reasons. One, for COVID. COVID forced a lot of the consulates to close. And then we get Trump to say that he's going to suspend all processes except in certain cases what relates to immediate relative. And certain visas, he's going to allow those, but the rest will be suspended. Now, we're getting war again that consulates are opening. What can people expect from that? Is that full force? Is it slow? What's going to happen?
Well, it's not going to happen immediately. All the consulates are opening slowly. Now, some of the ones that we have been working with are opening for emergency cases. They're opening for immediate relative type cases, urgent cases, things of that nature. But we have not seen the overall opening of the cases in anywhere from New Delhi to Ciudad Juarez. We are not seeing the overall opening. So the thought is that it's going to open. It's going to open slowly. It's going to open in a sense that they're going to initially take emergency cases that have been pending, and try to reschedule. Second, once once they open for emergency, the next step, most likely, that we are hearing is for canceled cases. Remember, there was a number of cases that were scheduled for interviews in various of the consulates for a variety of reasons, and they were pushed back. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to bring those back, do those interviews first, get those out of the way because they've been waiting in line longer. We also have a situation where you have people with business situations, L1, H1Bs, whatever the case may be, that are outside the United States. Either they want to go stamping or anything like that. I think there's still a hold on those, that we are still going to wait on those to be able to do so. But right now, we are seeing at least some progression that they are opening up slowly, but nothing confirmed, and overall opening has not just happened yet.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Hussein. We got a lot of information we covered today. We're going to continue doing these videos in English, so please share the video, like the video. The only way that we can continue to give this information out and more people can benefit from it is that if you share, if you like. Now, we have free consultations by phone right now in a way to help you. We know that there is a difficult situation right now. There's also a health risk. We want to protect your family. We're protecting our families. So you can call right now at 214-267-9300. It's on the right now. You can see it on the screen. You can call and schedule a consultation it's with me, with Attorney Hussein, with Attorney Jaime, with any of our 17 attorneys in 4 offices. So we have offices where, Hussein?
Well, everywhere. No, we have offices in Irving, where Haim is located, Dallas, Fort Worth. We have an office in that covers DMV in Virginia, but we take care of Maryland, we take care of DC, we take care of Virginia, and we are. But the good thing about this, Haim, is immigration law is federal law.
Yes.
That means if you happen to be in Arkansas and if you happen to be in Oklahoma and you say, Hussein, I need help, well, we are here. We may be able to help you directly with your case. And right now, majority of the work, as Haim mentioned, we are doing online. We have the capacity to work with you online. You can talk to us over the phone, Skype, GoToMeeting, whatever. So variety of ways we can assist you. So don't be shy. Talk to a lawyer. And that's the key here, as Haim mentioned. When you call our office, you actually have the opportunity to talk to a lawyer. You're not going to talk to a legal assistant or somebody who's not authorized to practice law in that particular state. You talk to somebody who can actually give you legal advice lawfully and tell you what exactly is going on and what they can assist you with.
Perfect. All right, Hussein, what last message we can give to people right now? What kind of piece of advice people can take with them today?
Well, I would tell the people, and this is something I think you and I talked about it, things look bleak, things look bad. You're thinking to yourself, Trump is doing this, we have COVID, we have these difficult laws, but don't give up hope.
Yeah.
Because out of situations like this, we have been able to get better things in the future.
Yes.
It was Haim and I know when Clinton passed that ADPA and all of that. Thereafter, we got other laws coming in there. People with DACA and with provisional waiver and things of that nature. So don't give up. Start getting your documentation. Talk to a lawyer. So when things happen, you're not waiting back there saying, should I or should I not? You're ready to go. You sprint to the door and you get these things done.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Hussein. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We're going to continue doing these shows. So as soon as we hear something from DACA, we will be back doing a Facebook Live in English. And throughout the weeks, throughout the month, we will continue doing this Facebook Live and trying to answer all questions. So please like and share this video. And if you want to schedule a consult right now, you can call 214-267-9300. Hussein, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing the time with us.
All right.
Take care,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.